conference. Tonight's meeting is available to the public on Channel 8 and through live streaming on Broomfield's website. Public participation is encouraged by calling 855-695-3744 and pressing *3 to be placed in the queue for comment. Please note, if you would like to speak on more than one item on tonight's agenda, you will need to press *3 each time to be placed back in the queue for comment. Public comment will be taken on agenda items following staff presentations. Screeners will ask callers for their first and last name, neighborhood, and the agenda item the caller would like to comment on. Please call several minutes before the agenda item and press *3 to ensure you are in the queue for comment. Public comment will also be taken during the public comment section for topics that are not on tonight's agenda. All public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Again, the number is 855-695-3744, and don't forget to press *3. The city council meeting is called to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Start over, I'm sorry.
Anderson?
Here.
Castriata?
Here.
Groom?
Here.
Hinkle?
Here.
Jezierski?
Here.
Law Evans?
Here.
Lim?
Here.
Lemstedt?
Here.
Schaff?
Here.
Tessier?
He will not be here this evening. So a quorum is present. Will everyone please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In an effort to keep order for tonight's meeting, I'm going to ask council to please utilize the video conferencing tools to raise their hand for comment or when making a motion or a second. I will call on the first hand raised to state the motion and the second hand raised to make the second as appropriate. I ask council members to limit their comments to 5 minutes. Abby will be assisting with the timekeeping and will provide council members with a notification via video conferencing chat when 1 minute remains. Please ensure you are on mute when not speaking. If a council member needs to leave the meeting, please inform me before doing so. We will plan on a 10-minute break at approximately 8 p.m. Let's begin with council review and approval of this evening's agenda. Council may add or remove items for the consent agenda, or council may revise the order of business for the meeting. Does any member of council have any additional comments or questions regarding this evening's agenda? Noting none, then we'll move on to the fact that there are no petitions and communications this evening. And so we'll now move to public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on matters other than the items already listed on this evening's agenda. To be placed in the queue for comment, please call 855-695-3744 and press *3. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. And I'm not noticing anybody. There's nobody in the screener, so we will move on to council's community and event updates are next. Does any member of council have an update this evening? Okay, then I do want to mention one item, which is the Broomfield Chamber of Commerce is hosting a webinar tomorrow to discuss the current state of the COVID-19 pandemic in Broomfield and ideas and solutions to help your business survive the pandemic. The event will be from 10:30 to 11:30 and is free. If you would like to attend, please register on the Broomfield Chamber's website. And we do have Councilmember Schaff. Councilmember?
Thank you, Mayor. So just wanted to remind all of council as well as all the public today is Colorado Gives Day. Support your favorite nonprofit at Colorado Gives. I believe it's coloradogives.org. I couldn't pull up the website quick enough, but your donation has the potential to be matched. And so it's a great day to give to your favorite nonprofit. And there are many Broomfield nonprofits that are deserving of your donation. I also wanted to let you know that I attended the Community Solutions Annual membership meeting this morning. Congratulations to our staff member, Sarah Grant, for being reelected to the board for Community Solutions. There were some good updates from RTD. Nothing really necessarily new other than Ms. Johnson, the CEO and general manager of RTD, has gotten more listening sessions completed, and so she is understanding more of the landscape of RTD. And one of the things that we did talk about was the equity in terms of the district, and so that is something that she's heard loud and clear. And so I think that the Northwest Corridor will be getting much more attention, at least in these early conversations. Continue the talking points of the Northwest Rail, as well as the inequities that exist within RTD, especially for our Northwest quadrant. And then the last thing I wanted to update council was, in this last week I attended well, maybe I did that last week. Never mind. I'm good. That's all I have, Mayor. Sorry.
Thank you. And how late tonight does Colorado Gives go?
I believe it's all night, but I'll check just to make sure.
Okay. Okay. Council consideration of consent agenda items 7A, 7B, 7C, and 7D, and 7E is next. Following the clerk's reading of these consent agenda items, we will ask for public comments. Will the clerk please read agenda items 7A, 7B, 7C, 7D, and 7E by title?
7A, approval of minutes, council meeting of December 1, 2020. 7B, resolution number 2020-280, reappointing Randall J. Davis as the presiding municipal judge for a limited term. 7C, resolution number 2020-277, certifying levies upon all taxable property within the city and county of Broomfield for tax year 2020. 7D, resolution number 2020-270, authorizing and approving an agreement by and between the city and county of Broomfield and Tool Design Group LLC for professional services related to the active wayfinding pilot plan. And 7E, resolution number 2020-275, acknowledging and approving a statement of rights and obligations pertaining to interlochen filing number 24, site development plan and subdivision improvement agreements for Wood Spring Suites.
Okay, we'll go with public comments. If anybody from the public wants to comment, I'll keep my eye on the screen. There's nobody in the queue right now. But if you want to, be sure to press *3. And I said the phone numbers earlier. Does any member of council have comments on these agenda items? Councilmember Schaaf.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to point out on agenda item 7C, the taxable property mill levies for 2020. The one category that was missing was for the city and county of Broomfield. I looked back through the previous memo agendas for this in previous years, and the CCOB was always listed. So I just wanted to have staff give an opportunity, or provide an opportunity for staff to just fill in that blank for us this year.
Good request. Any other comments or questions from City Council?
Mayor, can we have staff tell us what that number would be for?
Yeah, Sandy just came on. Sandy, you want to go ahead?
Hello, Mayor and council members. Yes, the City and County of Broomfield mill levies were received on Friday, December 5th. The City and County total levy is 28.968. That's the same mill levy that we've had since we became a county in 2001. That is split out in 3 categories. The splits are the same as they've been since we became a county. We have 3. One is for the city at 11.457. One is for the county at 15.261. And one is for Health and Human Services at 2.250.
Thank you, Sandy. Anything else, Councilmember Schaaf?
Nope. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sandy. That's our assessor. And I'll ask if any other member of council has any questions or comment on the consent agenda. I'm not seeing any, so I'll ask if there is a motion that the recommendations contained in the staff reports for agenda items 7A, 7B, 7C, 7D, and 7E be approved. Mayor Pro Tem Castriotto.
So moved, Mayor.
Is there a second? Councilmember Schaaf.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Anderson,
Yes.
Castriata,
Yes.
Groom,
Yes.
Hinkle,
Yes.
Jaworski,
Yes.
Law Evans,
Yes.
Lim,
Yes.
Lindstedt,
Yes.
Bass.
Yes.
It passes unanimously. So we'll move on to the Board of Social Services. This evening, the Board of Social Services will consider proposed resolution number 2020-274-BSS, acknowledging review of expenditures and electronic benefit transfers for July through September 2020. We will convene as a Board of Services. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Anderson,
Here.
Castriata,
Here.
Groom,
Here.
Hinkle,
Here.
Jaworski,
Here.
Law Evans,
Here.
Lim,
Here.
Lindstedt,
Here.
Bass.
Here.
There's a quorum present. So board members have a copy of the agenda memorandum, which staff will summarize.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Dan Casey, Director of Human Services, will walk us through this item with a brief overview. Dan?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the board, actually. Dan Casey, Director of Human Services, and today I'm just going to briefly summarize the resolution to acknowledge and review the expenditures for our electronic benefits transfer. The body of the memo provides the information to the board detailing the activities over the third quarter of 2020, including our financial and statistical information. The memo reports sources and uses of funds for human services programs in our self-sufficiency division and our child, adult, and family services division. The memo also reports the impacts of COVID-19 pandemic on our client benefits. I just wanted to hit a couple of quick highlights from the memo. EBT payments are made directly from the Colorado Department of Human Services to our recipients, program recipients that live in the city and county of Broomfield. Some of the COVID impacts really have impacted our Colorado Works, also known as TANF, or Temporary Aid for Needy Families. We got an increased allocation for our TANF this year of 10.72%. Our SNAP cases have gone up. Our SNAP is our Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, otherwise known as food assistance. Our cases, again, have gone up 30% in that program, and our benefit payments in that program have doubled. Our Child Care Assistance Program, or CCAP, what we call it, we have had a couple of different things. So our allocation increased this year, which allowed us to do two pretty substantial things. One was pay our parental fees for all of April through June. And then also in September, we continued that by paying 5 absences per month to the provider. That really helps that provider still receive that income, even though the child may not be present based on home, being remote learning or being at home for school. And then just to conclude, our July through September EBT payments equaled $3.6 million for that period of time. And Mr. Chair, that concludes my brief presentation, but I'm happy to stay and answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. Casey. We'll go to the public first. If there's anyone who would like to be heard or ask questions on this report for social services, please press *3, state your first and last name and neighborhood for the record. I thought I saw one person trying to get in the queue. I don't, something tells me they're probably not for social services. I'll keep an eye on that. So I'll go to council or the board members. Does any member of the board have any questions or comments they have for Mr. Casey on his report this evening? No, need none. Mr. Casey, thank you so much for your report. It's appreciated.
All right. Thank you guys and happy holidays.
Yeah, you too. Thank you. There being no further business before the Board of Social Services, the meeting is adjourned. We have one item for the Board of Health this evening. Staff will provide a COVID-19 update. Before we convene the Board of Health, I wanted to share an update with the public. Yesterday, public health staff hosted a Q&A. The City Council to provide additional time for council to ask questions pertaining to COVID-19 and the impact on Broomfield. The recording of the live stream as well as the presentation slides are available on this evening's agenda linked under item 9A. Once again, I'll repeat, the presentation slides that we got yesterday and the live stream of the entire hour and 10 minutes, you can go to item 9A on the agenda and you can click on those. Staff will continue to offer these Q&A sessions with council meeting from 4 to 5 on Mondays unless otherwise directed by council. The meeting of the Board of Health is called to order. I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Mayor, if we may just quickly for a point of order, we need you all to vote on the EBT under the Board of Social Services.
Oh, I didn't, that wasn't on my script, was it?
No, it was not.
Okay, yes, we do, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so now what do acting attorney, Pat Gilbert, do I have to reconvene the Board of Social Services since I just adjourned it?
Yes, I would reconvene it.
Okay, it's called to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Anderson,
Here.
Castriata,
Here.
Broom,
Here.
Hinkle,
Here.
Jezierski,
Here.
Law Evans,
Here.
Lynn,
Here.
Lindstedt,
Here.
Shaft.
Here.
Okay, it's proposed. I'll go back. It's proposed resolution number 2020-2744 or 274-BSS, acknowledge and review of social services expenditures for the period July 1st, 2020 to September 30th, 2020. Is there a motion to? I guess we just acknowledge review of the report by Mr. Casey. Council Mayor Pro Tem Castriata.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that resolution number 2020-274 BSS be adopted.
Councilmember Schaaf.
Second.
Any further discussion or any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Castriata,
Yes.
Broom,
Yes.
Hinkle,
Yes.
Jezierski,
Yes.
Law Evans,
Yes.
Lynn,
Yes.
Lindstedt,
Yes.
Shaft,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
It passes unanimously. And since there is no further business before the Board of Social Services, that meeting is adjourned. And I think I was at calling the Board of Health to order and asking the clerk to call the roll. Or I'd already go. Do I need to do that again, or are we're adjourned? I mean, we're in session, right? Will somebody? I mean, I think I did call the roll for that.
Yeah.
Mayor, we need to call the roll.
Okay,
The
so,
Board of Health.
okay, the meeting of the Board of Health is called to order. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Anderson,
Here.
Castriata,
Here.
Broom,
Here.
Hinkle,
Here.
Kuzinski,
Here.
Law Evans,
Here.
Lynn,
Here.
Lindstedt,
Here.
staff.
Here.
A quorum is present. Board members have a copy of the agenda memorandum, which staff will summarize.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thank you for your patience and grace on that last item. Jason Volling, Director of Board of Health, Director of
Public Health.
of Health, will walk us through this next item. Jason.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members or board members. It's a pleasure to be with you today. And as the mayor mentioned, we did a deep dive into the current situation yesterday during our presentation. So I'm not going to go deep into the weeds with the data and information, but give a high-level summary of what we discussed yesterday. So what we're seeing is after a downward trend starting on November 21st and lasting through November 27th, we're starting to see our Broomfield daily counts rise. And this is a similar trend we're seeing across the metro region. One reason for that is this week we're going to start to see the effects of the holiday on our case counts. So it'll be interesting to see, based on some of the mobility projections, if we have a significant spike in cases, a moderate spike, or if we continue in sort of this slower upward trend. Some of the good news in addition to that is since the 2nd of December, hospitalizations have been trending down across the state. However, we hear from our hospital systems that hospital capacity may be strained by expected staffing shortages. So we talk a lot about ICU beds and hospital beds, but the key thing is making sure we have the staff to actually staff those beds. Some other good news is we have 4 highly effective vaccine candidates. The 2 that people are probably most familiar with are the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine candidates. The Pfizer vaccine is likely to receive FDA approval on December 10th, and shortly thereafter, they'll be shipping the vaccine out to states. Colorado is anticipating to get 46,800 doses, and it should arrive within 48 hours of approval. Based on Colorado's plan, the first vaccines, and that's a very limited dose in that first shipment, will go to healthcare workers. So those are on the front lines in the hospital systems. And so as we get more information on the state's reprioritization of the priority populations within the vaccine distribution plan, we'll make sure that we share with this group. Some other good news is transmission control from the CU School of Public Health modeling shows that we've increased from 65% to 71%. This suggests that individual behaviors are changing along with our comprehensive mitigation strategies such as testing, our contact tracing, and some of the policy levers on the dial that could be impacting that. And it's a combination, in my belief, of all, along with communications. Lastly, the next 6 to 8 weeks will continue to be some of our most challenging, even though we're seeing these downward trends. We're at a very high place as far as our peak. And there's always a potential for a surge on our peak. So obviously, concerns as we have leading into the Thanksgiving holiday around high transmission, people gathering over the holidays, indoor gatherings as it gets colder out and we move further indoors. And just lastly, we know that COVID fatigue is out there. And so, Mayor and the board, that concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. We will we'll go to public comments next. Does any member of the public have want to be heard or have a question they want to ask on this on these subjects? Please press *3. State your first and last name and neighborhood for the record. I'm not seeing anybody in the queue, so we'll go to questions from the board. Or any member of the board that have questions this evening, please raise your hand and I will call upon you. Councilmember Groom.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to reiterate some of my questions that we had in our 3 o'clock for public information purposes. And then, of course, I had a couple of new ones. But again, Jason, has there been any restaurant outbreaks in Broomfield?
Yes, I believe there have been restaurant outbreaks in Broomfield. And we also know that there have been restaurant outbreaks in the state. When you go to the state outbreak website, you'll see that the number of restaurant outbreaks isn't as proportional as some of the other settings. However, as the state again set their capacity limits, they not only looked at the outbreak data, and when we're in a period of high community transmission, that could be even more challenging, but they looked at some of the studies that were out there, such as from the Journal of Nature, Harvard, and others, along with the CDC Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report, to identify those high-risk settings. And based on that, they concluded restaurant, bars, and gyms were 3 high-risk settings where you could potentially have transmission.
Thank you. And then I just had a question in regards to there are some counties in Colorado that are pushing back on the state levels for their county. Can you just talk about with the public what are they specifically pushing back on, and is it something why doesn't that fit for Broomfield?
Yeah, actually, what a couple of the counties that are doing is pushing back on the entire public health dial. We have one neighboring county that is doing that, saying they're not going to enforce the dial, and they believe in personal responsibility and individual behavior change. And the state has responded to say that those individual businesses operating in that county, they believe that, well, they know this is a public health order that we should all be following, which obviously has consequences with not following a public health order. So if a restaurant, another business just blatantly disregards the public health order, the state has the authority, and local public health jurisdictions have the authority to go in, do enforcement, and if it comes down to it, to look at suspending licenses.
Okay, and then my last question, you didn't really highlight in your bullets the outcome of the pilot program for small businesses and restaurants. How is that going, and is that a program that could be applicable for Broomfield?
Yeah, so the state received public comment on the certification program. It's based off of a program in Mesa County called the 5-Star Program. They are evaluating it in addition to the public comment they're receiving, and plan to release what the guidance will be for that program on December 14th. We're waiting to see what the ultimate guidance looks like. I shared yesterday some of the concerns, not only from public health officials, but some of the elected officials, or what metrics are they using to evaluate that program. And so we're asking the state to be clear on that just for transparency purposes. And then secondly, some concerns expressed in the public health community about implementing a program like this when we're in a very high place of community transmission. And so public health directors fully support the idea of having a business certification program similar to what we do in our other areas of restaurant inspections and so forth. The key is having the staffing to make sure that we could do it appropriately, which involves not only reviewing the plans and doing a site visit, but making sure we're out there doing our compliance checks as well.
Perfect, thank you. And then my last question is a follow-up from Ms. Hoffman. And that was the last few weeks since we've gone into the red category, we did start talking about getting some small businesses, especially restaurant owners, feedback so we could look at any and all programs, not just the Mesa County pilot programs. Have we started that? And if we have, when were the meetings or when are the meetings scheduled?
Thank you, Councilmember Groom. We're working in partnership with the Broomfield Chamber. I do not think that Jeff is on tonight, so if you give me 15 seconds, I will be able to confirm the date and time of those follow-up meetings, the brainstorming sessions, if you will, with support of the chamber.
If you could just make sure that you announce it when you have it so the public is aware, that would be great. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Appreciate the time, Mayor.
Okay, Councilmember Schaaf.
Thank you, Mayor. I noticed that tomorrow there will be a vaccine, or I guess, Jason, you mentioned the vaccine approval, and tomorrow it looks like the governor's office, CDPHE, CDPS will be providing a vaccine briefing for local officials. So I'm assuming your team is going to be attending that as well. And then I also saw that there was a dry run today for a vaccine delivery exercise, and it sounds like that went well, though I think that we'll hear more information tomorrow. Is there any anticipated updates regarding the governor's talk tomorrow that we can share today, or anything about the exercise and how that went that you might know about?
So I believe with the governor's updates, most of what I've been sharing is what will be shared tomorrow. So if there's new information, I haven't been briefed on that, or I'm not aware of it from the state health department.
Okay.
Secondly, is I heard the exercise went well today. So that's good news. As I mentioned during the presentation, part of us doing these exercises is to test it out and do after action reports to figure out what worked and what we can improve upon. And I think that's going to be the key throughout this entire process, is to continually adapt and improve as we're getting the vaccine out.
Excellent. Thank you. I look forward to hearing more tomorrow.
Board Member Castriotto.
Thank you, Board Mayor. Thank you, Jason, for the update. And just one quick question, and I know it's a tight turnaround, but we had testing today, and I was just curious if you were able to get any results from the testing to see if the Thanksgiving holiday resulted in an uptick in percent positivity, because I know we were at 9% last week. So just checking.
I don't have those results unless Deb does, but unfortunately I don't. Or Board Member Castriotto.
I'm sorry, this is Deb Fetterspill in the Public Health Department, and we just got our results for today. December the 8th, we tested 180 individuals, 19 positives, which is 10.56% positivity rate. So just a little bit higher than what we've been trending over these past many weeks, where we've been between 9 and 9.5% positivity rate.
Thank you, Ms. Fetterspill and Mr. Volling. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Mayor, can I make one final announcement I forgot to include in the presentation? Is yesterday the state updated It's a public health order, and now houses of worship are considered essential or critical businesses, and no longer have to follow the capacity limits, but they are still encouraged to follow all of the other recommendations for critical businesses, such as wearing face masks, social distancing, and all of those pieces. We'll be sending out an update on that tomorrow. Additionally, institutions like museums, aquariums, and zoos are now in level red, able to operate up to 25% or 25 people per room. And so we'll make sure that we send an update out on the latest revisions to the public health order so that everybody's aware. That just came across my desk.
Yeah, I saw that too, Jason. And, so I would suspect on the churches in particular that the community would really like to know. So, if you could get that information out to the community the next day or two, exactly what that means. Go ahead, Deb.
Oh, I'm sorry for interrupting. I was just going to say that in addition to the public communications that Jason said, that we're updating our frequently asked questions and putting information out there, I did send an email to all of our houses of worship in Broomfield to alert them this afternoon.
But there's not like a 25% or 50% capacity limit. They just have to do social distancing and mask indoors.
That's correct, Mayor. So that there are no capacity limitations because houses of worship, as Jason said, are now considered a critical business, but they do still need to follow all of the other protocols, as you mentioned. So that was part of what we reinforced in the email, that face coverings are still required indoors, maintaining space between households and considering ways to stagger services, have traffic control so there's not crowds gathering. And I think the other important thing to note is that because we're in level red, indoor events are still prohibited. So worship services may proceed, but indoor events such as holiday parties and things like that are still prohibited under level red. And so just making sure that our local places of worship are aware that with operating as a critical business, even with those capacity limits lifted, there are still protocols and restrictions in place that they'll need to maintain. And of course, we still encourage virtual and outdoor options whenever possible.
Councilmember Groom.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to clarify, how is and I'm happy that churches are considered critical, but how does that differ from what restaurants do? I mean, restaurants keep their family, at one table. There's 6 foot difference. I mean, there might be a mask off while they're eating, but I think that's really penalizing yet once again small businesses, especially restaurants.
I will offer comment. This was specifically related to a Supreme Court decision a couple of weeks ago.
I know. I'm just making the comment and seeing if there's a place there where Broomfield, we usually are trendsetters and pushing back on the state. If there's any pushback that we could do on that. Again, get restaurants open, not shut down churches. I be clarified there. Thank you. That's just my.
Councilmember Law Evans or Board Member Law Evans.
Thank you, Chair. So I would ask Deb and Jason, again, following up on the court case with houses of worship, does this latest announcement that houses of worship are considered critical businesses, is that statewide, and does that overrule all local? Okay, so because I worship at a church that meets in Boulder County. We're meeting outside, which has been lovely, I have to admit. I guess that's going to change, but it has been nice. The pastor made the announcement that we were going to have Christmas services indoors. And I had thought, it's in Boulder County, I had thought that we weren't going to be allowed to do that. But this court case says now it's an essential business, as long as we follow all the other rules and whatnot, that we can go ahead and meet indoors.
Yeah, correct, Councilmember Law Evans.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate that clarification. Thank you, Chair. That's all I've got.
Okay, anything else, Mr. Vollian or Deb? Okay, so we will, there being no further business before the Board of Health, the meeting is adjourned. There is no business before the Broomfield Housing Authority. Our first item under council business this evening is the public hearing and council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2020-248, approving an amendment to the Risen Savior Lutheran Church Site Development Plan for additional signage. I'll now declare the public hearing open. We will follow the city standard public hearing procedures. First, staff will present a summary of the proposal. Next, we will have the applicant's presentation if applicable. Then we will ask for public comments and final comments from the applicant. And finally, questions and comments from the city council. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which staff will summarize.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Anna Burton-Zetti, Planning Director, will introduce us to this item and introduce the applicant subsequent to that. Thank you. Anna?
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Next slide, please. The applicant this evening, Ed Sweetwood, has requested approval of a site development plan amendment, which would permit a new monument sign for the Risen Savior Lutheran Church. The property is north of 144th Avenue on the west side of Federal. The site is zoned PUD, which is Planned Unit Development, and is located within the Transitional Overlay Area District. The property is governed by the Risen Savior Lutheran Church PUD plan and associated site development plans. The existing site development plan for the property identifies one permissible monument sign, and this sign is existing today at the northwest corner of 144th and Federal. Next slide, please. The proposed monument sign will be located along West 144th Avenue and will be placed adjacent to an existing pedestrian walk area. The sign is about 25 feet north of the property line and meets all established setback requirements. Next slide, please. In accordance with the Broomfield Municipal Code, the maximum total surface area for any freestanding sign is not to exceed 100 square feet per side, and the proposed monument sign will be a total of 39.8 square feet per side, totaling 79.6 additional square feet of signage for the church. The church will have the ability to change the LED reader board to display information related to the church. The sign messaging will be permitted to change a maximum of 4 times per day per this proposal. The sign will feature a solid masonry base, which is consistent with the existing signage on the site. Next slide, please. The City and County of Broomfield standard public notices have been met for this project, including a neighborhood meeting which was held in September. The Planning and Zoning Commission held a public meeting in September of this year as well. They recommended approval 7-0 of this proposal with the following conditions: the applicant work with staff to add masonry base, and that the applicant work with staff to establish timing of the sign dimming in the off hours. The applicant did work with staff following the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to address these requirements. The masonry base was added as shown in the slide presentation, and the plans were additionally updated to specify that the light will dim 60% at 6 o'clock and will turn off completely between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. Staff has received one letter of support from a neighboring property owner, which was added into the correspondence folder for tonight's agenda. No key issues have been identified by staff. That concludes staff's presentation, and the applicant should be here this evening as well.
Okay, so we'll go to the presentation by the applicant. Just as we encourage staff to keep their presentation brief, I will ask the applicant to be concise as well. Will the applicant's representative please identify themselves for the record prior to beginning their brief presentation this evening? Do we have somebody here from the applicant? Anna, who would it be?
I believe.
Hi there, this is Ed Sweetwood with Risen Savior Lutheran Church. Sorry about that, Mayor. Just had a second to unmute. I appreciate the opportunity to present this proposal in front of this fine board. The church has been a longstanding community member here in Broomfield, and we have a lot of outreach, messages, programs that we would like to reach our community. And the purpose of the sign is to allow us to be more effective in our ability to welcome and invite. those in the community the services that we offer here. That concludes my my statements.
Thank you. I noticed, Pastor, did you want to say a few words, or you?
No, I'm just very much in support of it. We've been very much a part of the community, and was glad that the staff was supportive of this. So I hope that you'll to go ahead and approve this this new sign. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll go to public comments. If there's anyone who would like to be heard, please press *3. State your first and last name and neighborhood for the record. We'll start with Brent. Brent, you have 3 minutes. State your name, full name and neighborhood for the record, if you would.
My name is Brent Bickle, and I live just north of the proposed sign in Wilcox. And my comments are not meant to be negative about the church or about the pastor. My strong feelings about this matter relate solely to LED signs, which I know many of the board members have also expressed concerns about. When I was in Superior, the town of Superior put an LED sign in front of City Hall, which ironically is not permitted for any business in Superior. After a few weeks, because of the bright, flashy, gaudy casino-style sign and complaints from residents, the town had to go to just using red type for the sign. There are no LED signs on this area. It's inappropriate for the area. You have the broadlands across the street. You have horse property just immediately north of the church. The last thing we need is a gaudy, bright, flashy casino-style sign on 104th and 44th in that area. And do we really want to set a precedent so that any church can have a big, flashy, bright, gaudy LED sign in front of the church on a 4-lane street in town? I don't want to be driving downtown and see these signs everywhere if that's the precedent that we establish. By all means, if the church wants to put in a bigger, more appealing, a monument that can bring more people into the church, great. But please, God, do not allow them to put an LED sign there. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not noticing anybody else. I see one in the queue. Is somebody being screened?
No, Mayor.
Okay, so okay, there's none in the queue. So I will go ahead. At this point where I allow the applicant to, do they want to comment on the public comment there?
Yeah, hi again. It's Ed Sweetwood here from Risen Savior Lutheran Church. And our intent is not to have a gaudy Vegas style sign out there that's flashing and anything like that. It's more subtle with messages of invitation and warm words. Because of the limitations that we have with the illumination of the signs and the time of day, I think we're doing a good job to maintain an appropriate signage that's respectful. I've got the vendor here that's supporting the sign. Any comments that you might have, Robert, about the sign itself?
The sign really isn't a gaudy sign. It's an LED sign that has the capability to be shut off, set whenever it wants to come back on. It's a state-of-the-art LED sign. It dims automatically, but you can dim it to wherever you want. You can go all black. You can bring it up a little bit. It's probably more state-of-the-art than any LED sign right now in the city of Broomfield.
And would we be setting a precedence here with the first LED sign in Broomfield? Or
No.
Not at all?
No.
Okay. I didn't think so. Okay, that's our other comments.
Okay, so good, thank you. So we'll go to City Council questions or comments. Does anyone from council have comments they want to make? Councilmember Law Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am very interested about the comments, the public comments concerning precedent setting, because it seems to me, I live down in the southern part of town, and I think there's an LED sign for Calvary Church on Sheridan, and also for the Christian Church of Broomfield on Sheridan. Anna, do you happen to know if there are other church LED signs in town?
Thank you, council member. Yes, I can confirm there are a few churches that have LED readers. Nativity Church just down the way actually has a revocable permit for their sign as well that the council reviewed a few years ago. So yes, there's a number of churches and also schools that utilize the LED readers.
Right. That I appreciate that. It seems to me that I just happen to know of those two on Sheridan because I, live right down here, but I don't consider them gaudy or distracting. And certainly I know the one at Nativity as well. So I think that I can't comment on the public comment on the sign in front of the Superior Town Hall. Maybe Superior folks maybe they're just by nature more gaudy than Broomfield folks. I don't know. But the signs that I know of in town, in churches, in front of schools and whatnot, I do not consider to be gaudy. And I think they can be very tastefully programmed. So I can't imagine that the Risen Savior folks are gonna, I can't imagine that you even have an interest in being gaudy or flashy or whatever. And I fully support this. I completely support this. I think that while there could be concerns with this, I just don't see a problem with the Risen Savior folks putting this sign up. So I do support it. Thank you.
Councilmember Henkel.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ed and Pastor Philip. I'm glad to hear you guys tonight, and thanks, Brent, for calling in. We had some other input as well from other members of Wilcox, and it sounds like there's a good amount of, sort of midway in between the bright lights being on all the time versus the timing. It looks like it was, if I read it right a few days ago, if I remember right, it seems like it was dimmed at 6 p.m. And I even think off between, I think 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. And I think, that was from a lot of the surrounding area input. And me being a past communications director at your neighboring church over there at Discovery Christian Church for 6 years, changing out those signs on those elastic beams all the time, and then the wind taking them, it can be costly to the church and then also costly to the surrounding wildlife, because we had signs even blow over by where the horses are. And we know how hard that is to order these signs, to change them up. And it's not a sustainable activity to put a lot of these new signs out. So I welcome the sign, and I have a good feeling that you guys received good public input before it, and you guys had good design going into it. So I appreciate you. Thanks.
Councilmember Jezierski.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to go a little bit different tact on this. I do have some concerns with LED signs sort of popping up, around our community. I know we don't want to become Vegas East, I don't think, at least most of us don't. And I know that we did, I say we, but I know council did express concerns when the LED sign was proposed for the WeatherTech building over on, that's going to be going up on Wadsworth. So that this has been an issue in the past. I do appreciate the fact that it seems like maybe the cat's already out of the bag as far as it goes for churches. The one question I do have for staff, you mentioned the one on Nativity, which did come to my mind. You said that was a permit, so is that a different situation than what we are looking at tonight?
Thank you, council member. Yes, with Nativity, they didn't need to amend a site development plan, but the placement of the sign required a revocable permit because it's placed in the right of way. So that was the reason that it came forward to city council in that location.
So with the revocable permit, that means that at some point, if we weren't happy with that sign there, we'd be able to say, sorry, we're done with LED signs in that part of the community, and they wouldn't have a right to continue with it?
In the case of that church, yes, it's a revocable permit. So in order to revoke the permit, there would be a notice required to the church, and they'd have an opportunity to relocate it outside the right of way.
Okay, so the revocable permit is only because it's inside a right of way. It's not necessarily, and they would have a right to keep that sign, but it would have to stay within their own right of way, or on their own property.
That's correct. The sign at Nativity, I don't recall there being any type of variance for that as part of the revocable. That wouldn't
Okay.
be typical. So it would just need to be relocated off of the public property.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely nothing against the church, but I do. I mean, I don't know how I'm going to vote on this tonight, but just overall, I do have concerns with with these type of signs popping up all over the community. So I mean, certainly that's not an issue right now. But as with anything, it's a slippery slope. As we've already heard, a number of churches already have it, and then maybe we're okay today, but who knows where we end up 5 years, 10 years, or more down the line. So nothing specific to this sign that I have any issues with. It's more the bigger picture that I'm looking at and concerned with. So looking forward to hearing anyone else's comments. And I guess that's all. Thanks.
Mayor Pro Tem Castriotto.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And I wanted to say that I appreciate the applicant reaching out to the neighborhood and getting feedback from the residents of Wilcox. It is a very special place, as you know, and they enjoy their dark skies, and it's very quiet and rural. So I appreciate you making sure that they were okay with this first. And I just want to reaffirm that this will be dimmed at night. Mr. Smallwood? Sweetwood, sorry.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, and it will be turned off from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Yes, correct.
And there won't be any spillover into the neighborhood.
Correct.
And you're not going to do anything garish or casino-like.
Correct.
All right. Well, I do appreciate that, and I will support this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Schaaf.
Thank you, Mayor. So I appreciate the public comment that we had on this tonight. It gave me a couple other things to just check before the vote. So the existing monument sign that's there at 144th and Federal, that will continue to be there. That's not going to be removed. So they'll have two monument signs basically right there along 144th. Is that correct?
Councilmember Schaaf, that's correct.
Okay. And then we do have an ordinance regarding LED signs. This isn't something we're just kind of haphazardly approving at this point. We have standard code for this.
Councilmember Schaaf, we do not have a specific code for LED reader boards. We do have requirements for maximum sign area, and through the site development plan process, we can include additional design requirements, such as the applicant is including with this sign, limiting the number of times the sign can change per day, because there are requirements in the code that prohibit flashing or moving signs in any way for any type of sign. So they would not be able to do that, but they include additional dimming requirements above what the code would have required for any other illuminated type of sign.
Well, that's great to hear. Is this an area in which we need to update our code and put some specifics in this so that we can standardize this?
Councilmember Schaaf, we have identified the sign code as an area for future updates, and that would be something to include.
Yeah, I think with regard to Councilmember Jazorski's questions, knowing that we had one that we saw not too long ago that caused a little bit of controversy, I think that that would be something if we can standardize this if we're going to continue, and knowing that this isn't the first one, and I don't think it's going to be the last one. So that may be good. I did look through the code and I found the electronic sign, so I didn't know if that applied. So it sounds like this is something different that doesn't really have there. Do we have any restrictions on signage in because this is a toad, the church is included in the toad area? Are there any restrictions on signs in that area?
That's a great question. In the transitional overlay area district for the transitional uses, there would be requirements. This particular use is under a PUD plan. It would be compliant with the requirements for the transitional area, but it would not be subject to them because of the zoning, but it would be compliant.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that the Planning and Zoning Commission, they did a great job with their recommendations for this in terms of the solid masonry base and the specified times for the sign to be dimmed as well as completely turned off. I think that those are adequate mitigations on this. And I hope that the church would, listen to any complaints that there are from the community after this goes up, if there's any ability to adjust any of those timings or anything like that. But I think those were great recommendations by Planning and Zoning, and I support this tonight. Thank you.
Councilmember Groom.
Yes, thank you. I just say that I myself am not in support of these types of signs. However, I do feel like the cat's out of the bag here in Broomfield. If I was involved in the very first sign, I probably would have tried to get it in the ordinance to not have it all. There is one sign in Broomfield that looks kind of Las Vegas-y, and it is on a corner of a major intersection. And I do say that this is more of a residential type neighborhood. So I am sure that the church will respect their neighbors in that association. But one of the things I wrote down is enhancing our ordinances for even what kind of colors or how many colors can be used at the same time. So they're not, fluorescent or orange or something like that is not appealing to the neighborhood. The other signs that I know of, I think is very respectable. The church ones, they've been really respectable in not making it, as we've termed it, Las Vegas-y. So I intend to support this, but I do want staff to see if we could take an action item and look at those ordinances and how we can beef them up so they aren't so flamboyant. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Lindstedt.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I think as Councilmember Groom just said, the cat's out of the bag on these types of signs. My one concern here is the 60% dimming at 6 o'clock. That almost feels too early in the summer and too late this time of year, with the time change and everything else. So I'm a little concerned that this time of year, especially, that'll be blinding to drivers. I don't know what that 60% dim looks like at night, but I do get a little worried that maybe that is a little bit too late to be dimming it this time of year. So my one suggestion would be maybe 5 o'clock or changing it, but I don't know. I mean, I think I'm okay with it. But when we bring up these signs, when we update our code, I think we need to figure out some way to accommodate the time change in that code, because I totally agree that we need to have some type of standardization across the city and county for these types of signs. But I'm okay with this one, and I will be supporting it tonight, but I do want to see future adjustments to our sign code. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from council? There being no further comments, the public hearing before the city council is closed. Next is council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2020-248. Will the clerk please read proposed resolution number 2020-248 by title?
Resolution 2020-248, approving the Risen Savior Lutheran Church filing number 1, site development plan amendment number 4.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that resolution number 2020-248 be adopted.
Councilmember Law Evans.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Groom.
Yes.
Engel.
Yes.
Kuczynski.
Yeah.
Law Evans.
Yes.
Lynn.
Yes.
Lindstedt.
Yes.
Schaaf.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Castriota.
Yes.
So it passes unanimously, and it's going to have me searching for the origination of the phrase, "the cat's out of the bag." So I don't think I'd heard that for a while. I heard it 4 times tonight. So congratulations, Ed and Pastor, and we'll move on to council's consideration of the first reading of proposed ordinance number 2146, extending the prohibition on operation of certain marijuana establishments within Broomfield. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which staff will summarize.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. On this item, Christine Franciscani will walk us through and be available for additional questions as we introduce this extension. Christine?
The moratorium on marijuana establishments in Broomfield currently expires this coming year on January 30th. A study session on proposed marijuana regulations is scheduled for December 15th, a week from today, and staff is in the process of drafting regulations for retail marijuana sales. This moratorium ordinance will allow the prohibition on retail marijuana sales to expire on April 1st, 2021, while the prohibition on cultivation and manufacturing will stay in place through April 1st, 2025. The second reading of this ordinance is scheduled for January 12th, 2021. If the ordinance is adopted, it will go into effect on February 1st, 2021. That ends my presentation.
Thank you. We will now proceed with public comment. We have, Tom's on the line. Tom, please state your full name and your neighborhood, and you have 3 minutes.
From Broomfield Heights. Thank you very much. I want to talk about the fact that this should have been put to a vote in the first place. The fact that the city council tied on the vote on a very controversial issue should have never been resolved by one person. The city council in past years has tried to improve Broomfield, but in their efforts to improve Broomfield, they have created huge traffic issues. Let's talk about Midway and Main Street. At 5 o'clock, you can sit backed up to the Catholic Church waiting for the signal at Midway and Main. Or if you're going southbound on Main Street, you can sit backed up to the high school. I don't understand why we're worried about bringing in dispensaries when we're not worried about the traffic that we have. The taxes that everybody paid in Broomfield in 2020, this year in the pandemic, are over $7,000 for every single person and child living in Broomfield. Now, you can talk about pass-through taxes, but the bottom line is that's how much was spent. CU Denver did a study and said that 25% taxes on marijuana sales in Denver did not cover the cost of dispensaries. What are we thinking about? Do dispensaries improve Broomfield? I don't think so. And by the way, I looked, and in the last 6 years, my personal property taxes on my residence have increased 60%, 10% per year. Is that not enough revenue to cover our expenses? Do we really need these taxes? Why isn't this being put to a vote? Look what happened on the Gallagher Amendment. It went down, and it went down big time, 75%. So the final thing is, you have to wonder, why are dispensaries in rundown areas? Well, that's because a dispensary under federal law cannot go into any type of property that has a mortgage on it because it's illegal. So what's going to happen? What's going to happen here is what happened in Denver. They go into rundown areas. They don't improve it. So let's start by putting this on the ballot and seeing if the citizens of Denver really want this. I'm sorry, the citizens of Broomfield really want dispensaries. And if they do, great, let's move forward. But if they don't, let's stop it. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you. The Mayor Pro Tem is informing me that there's someone in the queue that wants to speak, so we'll give them a second or two.
I didn't catch, Mayor, I didn't catch Tom's last name. Do we have that for the record?
We do, it's Bauder, I believe. Yes.
Thank you.
We have Brent on the line. Brent, would you please state your full name, your neighborhood, and you have 3 minutes to speak on this item.
Hello, Mayor. Are we in 11C now?
We are 11C now. We're talking about the moratorium for marijuana.
I'm sorry. I have this up for the Ajax renewal.
No, no. So no, this is the, so we'll stay on the line and we'll call you up for the Ajax renewal. Is that what you want to speak on? Okay. We'll give him a chance to speak for the Ajax renewal. So I will now go to council comments and questions. So if any member of council wants to make a question or a comment, please raise your hand. I'm not noting any questions or comments, so let's go with council.
Mayor, I'm sorry, I'm trying to raise my hand and I didn't.
Okay. Councilmember Law Evans and then Groom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I would just note that for what it's worth, we have received a certain amount of emails over the last, it looks like maybe for the last 24 hours thereabouts. Quite a few people have encouraged us to extend the moratorium. Quite a few people have encouraged us to, as has been discussed quite a bit already in the past, put this on the ballot. I certainly am in favor of extending the moratorium. And as always, I am in favor of putting this on the ballot. So I will be talking about that more at second reading, but I do support this on first reading tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Groom.
Yeah, I too have a concern about the timeline. I look at kind of what everybody's feedback has been on council in regards to the length of meetings and the number of agenda items. We've got a lot of things going, especially with now hiring another individual, which is the judge. I wouldn't mind seeing this being pushed out another few months, maybe June, July timeframe, and allow for additional discussions and additional time between some study sessions to really engage. I would like to see, I've met a few people from industry, and those are the people that I would like to even bring on board for a study session in order to get their opinions and what really works for the industry, because they definitely are. There's some trendsetters out there. So I would be pushing for this to be at least 3 or 4 months extended past the April even.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say that would allow us some elbow room if anything happens between now and that April timeframe. We'll have to be back here again doing another moratorium.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Castriotto.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I'm not in favor of kicking it down the road yet again. It's kind of been kicked down the road for 8 years, if you think about it, because nothing was ever investigated or researched or studied since 64 passed. They just kept passing more and more moratoriums. So it's time to really tackle this. It's been postponed once. We can revisit in April if we're not there and extend, just like we did with the oil and gas moratorium. I do hear the 7 residents that keep writing us and that are opposed to this, but I do believe that it's not going to be the end all of Broomfield. Look at Lafayette, look at Louisville. They didn't become crime meccas when they allowed dispensaries. They're really nice and they don't have an increase in crime because of it. I've spoken to the mayors of both of those towns, and it has been a huge benefit for what they can do with this tax revenue. the millions that were basically given away. I believe permitting retail cannabis in Broomfield, it ensures personal choice and prevents government overreach. We often get accused of being a nanny state for telling the public what they can and cannot do. Yet the same defenders of liberty want us to deny cannabis users their legal right to access this product in Colorado. This is not in line with the demands for smaller government and less regulation. The free market is the solution to most everything else, so why not support the free market cannabis economy? No one is forcing anyone to purchase it or use it. Thank you.
Councilmember Lindstedt.
Thank you, Mayor. I am in support of this extension so that we can craft a regulatory structure that will not only allow Broomfield to benefit from the sales of marijuana by generating tax revenue and creating jobs, but also regulations that'll keep our kids and families safe. So I fully support this, and I think we can have a lengthy stakeholder process. We can have extra meetings and see where this goes and moves forward. And if we had to extend it again, I'm sure we could have that conversation, but I think this timeline right now makes sense. And I think this is the right direction to move forward for the future of Broomfield. So I appreciate the time. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you. And Councilmember Lindstedt just pretty much said what I was going to say. I definitely support this moratorium. We can extend it if we need to. And back when we were doing the vote, we're past that now. I was in favor of the two-part question, putting it to a vote, but we're here. This was the decision we made as a body, and now we're moving forward with strong regulations. That was an agreement that we made. So I'm ready to move forward, and I do appreciate the input that we have received from the citizens to date. And I do hope that our staff, as they are drafting these first regulations, are taking that input into account, and I'm sure we will get more. And I'm definitely collecting it, and we'll be asking questions as we move forward. So I'm looking forward to that discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from council? Will the clerk please read proposed ordinance number 2146 by title?
Ordinance number 2146, extending the prohibition on operation of certain marijuana establishments within the city and county of Broomfield, first reading.
Is there a motion? Councilmember Lindstedt.
Sure, I'll move it. I move that ordinance number 2146 be adopted on first reading and ordered published in full, and that a public hearing on the ordinance be held virtually at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, January 12, 2021, as allowed by City Council procedures and rules of order, and that the second reading and final reading of the ordinance be scheduled for January 12, 2021, following the public hearing.
Is Councilor or Mayor Pro Tem Castriotto?
Second.
Any other discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Hinkle?
Yes.
Jaworski?
Yes.
Law Evans?
Yes.
Lynn?
Yes.
Lindstedt?
Yes.
Schaaf?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Castriotto?
Yes.
Broom? Broom?
Yes.
Okay, it passed unanimously. And then just to clarify for the public and everybody else, is it might have been mentioned earlier that that we will have if I understand correctly, we will have a study session next Tuesday on the 15th, where we'll begin to discuss what the regulations look like. And I guess that's kind of my point. I didn't want to make a comment earlier, is that I'm interested in the regulations on where they are or not allowed. And I think that's important for the public to know. It's not like people aren't buying marijuana, bringing it into Broomfield. It's a question of where it should be sold, and we'll look at regulations next Tuesday. It will be a study session. We will not take public comment. You certainly can send emails to us, and it will be televised on Channel 8 and and streamed if you're interested. So we'll move on to 11C, and Jan, who just signed on. Jan, I'm sorry, I have, we've already had the vote on 11B, so we're going to move on to 11C. So 11C is the final item on the business agenda this evening for council's consideration, and it includes 2 resolutions authorizing and approving amendments to the air quality monitoring contracts with both Ajax Analytic Inc. and Boulder Air. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which staff will summarize.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. For this item, Tammy Yellico, Director of Strategic Initiatives, will walk us through this agreement. Tammy?
Yes, so if both resolutions are approved that are before you tonight, you would be approving a 4th amendment to the Ajax Analytics Agreement and a 1st amendment to the Boulder Air Agreement for air quality monitoring. Throughout 2020, we've had our air quality monitoring system in place with trigger canisters on sensor stations, both near well pads and out into neighborhoods, as well as stationary monitoring at a reference grade level of a variety of emissions that would come off of oil and gas pads, as well as monitoring ozone in Broomfield. Also in place, we've had Colorado State University's Plume Tracker, which tracks plumes off of oil and gas pads into the neighborhood. So the first resolution is the 4th amendment to the Ajax agreement for the 2021 costs of the air monitoring system. The total cost under this 4th amendment is $545,642. That will provide Broomfield with 6 sensor stations with trigger canisters, as well as weekly canister at 6 locations. Both trigger canisters and weekly canisters are analyzed at the lab at Colorado State University. In addition, we have the benefit of Colorado State University's PTRMS system, which measures BTEX, benzene, toluene, ethylbenzene, and xylene on a 90-second basis. These are typical emission signatures off of oil and gas pads. In addition, that would also include the plume tracker that would be used to track any emissions. Also, in this cost, we have the ability to add sensor stations at an additional cost upon 30 days notice. Currently we have 14 sensor stations throughout Broomfield. We're going down to 6 stations under this contract. These stations are placed around the Livingston pad and the interchange pads. If activities would start up on other extraction oil and gas pads in Broomfield in 2021, we could add in monitors and sensor systems with trigger canisters and weekly canisters as determined necessary for those activities. And also, we are getting a prepayment discount on this total contract price. We would withhold $25,000 of the total amount owed till the end of the term. For the Boulder Air contract, we have 2 online gas chromatograph monitoring stations. One is at Soaring Eagle Park in Broomfield, which is just east of Lowell in the Anthem Highlands neighborhood. And then also one is just northwest of the Livingston pad. This also is measuring oil and gas signatures, as well as some ozone measurements at the Soaring Eagle Park location. Total cost for 2021 for the Boulder Air contract would be $417,087. Next slide. The next slide is a breakdown of the source of these funds. So for the 6 trigger canisters, you can see the price there. The weekly canisters, 6 at each of the sensor locations, you can see the price there. PTRMS, we also have some citizen and staff grab canister samples included in there, up to 24. We have provided canisters to some citizens when they are having health concerns and continuous impact that they believe is coming from the oil and gas pad. Also, our inspectors use grab canisters if there is an issue developing at the pad or in the neighborhoods to take a more immediate sample at the source. We have a public data portal that's part of this, and of course CSU's mobile plume tracker. as well as reporting and analysis. So they are, of course, 4 quarterly reports on this system. In addition, Dr. Jeff Collette and Brett Buck provide us with daily input on questions that we receive from council members and citizens, as well as analysis of individual events that stand out on the data. So that's for what we're getting for the $545,000 under this contract. If extraction well pad activities would restart in 2021 on any month, we can add in monitoring stations, for example, around the Northwest A and B pad, the United pad, or the Interchange pad. And you can see the per unit monthly cost in the chart there on the bottom left. The next slide, please. So this chart on the solid green dots shows where we would continue sensor monitoring in 2021 under the proposed contract. So there would be the monitoring stations east and west of the Livingston pad, as well as north in Anthem Ranch and south in Wildgrass. Those are 4 of the sensor systems we would be getting under this agreement, and then 2 sensor systems over at the Interchange pad. The reason we are focusing on these pads is we have 18 wells in production on the Livingston pad at this time, and we have 12 wells in production on the Interchange B pad. The circles that are not filled in, but simply circles, are where we have sensors currently under our current program, and where we may add in sensors back in 2021 should operations increase. Next slide, please. So this slide is our total costs then for Livingston and, for Boulder Air, for the Livingston site, and also for the Soaring Eagle site, where their total cost of $417,000. And then the next slide. So this then is the total cost. Strategic initiatives, council approved $1.2 million for the air quality monitoring program in our 2021 budget. We would be using $962,729 of that amount if both of these contracts were approved for 2021. We would have a balance of $230,000, which is available again if operations would start up on any of the other extraction well pads in 2021. And that is the staff summary. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, we'll now proceed with public comments. If there's anyone who would like to be heard, please press *3. State your first and last name and neighborhood for the record. Brent, we're now on 11C. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I must say that I was very surprised to see this on the agenda, and especially for the amount. Brief history: in 2018, the City and County of Broomfield set up this program for $386,000. And that was to get everything set up. There wasn't really any drilling. Then last year, it was $1.5 million for everything. Everything they could possibly sell us, we purchased, because there's going to be the drilling. We have to make sure we know everything. Councilmember Schaaf actually came out with what I thought was a very reasonable counterproposal for $1,090,000. So here we are in the middle of a pandemic. We have businesses failing right and left. There's so many compelling needs for this money and these funds, this $1 million. And now we're considering spending $960,000, nearly what Councilmember Schaaf's proposal was last year when all the drilling was going on, to measure the air quality at drill sites where there is no drilling. That just is unbelievable to me. Is that really the best way we can spend this $1 million? Is that the most responsible way to spend the $1 million? So I'm not sure. I don't think it is. So I strongly encourage council members to take a hard look at this and see if this is really the most fiscally responsible thing we can do as far as this $1 million, and reconsider this and either have them come back with a lower cost contract or just let it expire. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other public comments, so I will go to questions from the City Council. Any comments or questions from the City Council? Please raise your hand. Councilmember Lim.
I guess I wanted to address the comments that were just made by the resident. We still are dealing with emissions coming off of the pads during the production phases. So yes, we're not currently doing active drilling at any of the pads by extraction, but we still do have emissions coming off the pads. And in fact, if you go back and look at the air quality monitoring reports, that might give you some insight into the emissions that are coming off the pad still. Recently we had acetylene benzene spikes that were repeating from late August through mid-October. And it was only through the air quality monitoring systems of actually both Boulder Air and Ajax CSU that they were able to pinpoint the source of those spikes to the pad, the Livingston pad. And then at that time, when our staff approached extraction about discussing those spikes and saying that we had the data to triangulate them to the Livingston pad, then suddenly the spikes mysteriously disappeared without extraction saying anything about what caused them. But certainly it was because of our data pinpointing the source to the Livingston pad that we were able to get those spikes to suddenly disappear on probably by some action of extraction that they did not want to reveal. So unfortunately, I would like to not have to think about spending this money for air quality monitoring too, but we still do have emissions coming off the pads. During production, we still have residents having health impacts, unfortunately, that are being studied. And so we still do need this data from these air quality monitoring systems. Thank you.
Councilmember Castriota, or Mayor Pro Tem.
Your work. I would like to concur with Councilmember Lim because according to the third quarter air quality monitoring report, oil and gas operations in Broomfield continue to contribute to increased concentrations of VOCs near the pad.
Mayor Pro Tem, your voice is
Okay, you know what I realized? The speaker gets tired, like on my computer. I don't know why.
It's your microphone.
Try this. Hold on. Oh, hold on. All right, here is my plan B. Is that better?
No.
Well, what do I do? I'll switch devices, and then you can go to Lori and.
Yeah, we'll go to Councilmember Anderson. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you. And I do agree with what Councilmember Lim stated, and I'll just add a couple more points to some of these discussions that have been ongoing, and that this was an iterative process of trying to see where do we come from, trying to bring that program down that was over $1 million into something more reasonable in this period of time when there, understand we still do have emissions, but that there isn't any ongoing drilling or well completions, but that these could start up within 30 days. We'll get a 30-day notice, and we will only have a very short window of time to get that air quality monitoring back up when the United and Northwest pads move forward, assume that they do move forward. So we can't just completely abandon the air quality monitoring program regardless and think that we could start it up that quickly. So that was another reason behind keeping the programs in place. And this was this was the best agreement that we could come to keep this air quality monitoring going in the interim with that quick response coming from our air quality monitoring experts. So that's what I will add. I definitely support this. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, do you have? Okay, Councilmember Law Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the comments that have been made so far, both by council members and by Mr. Bickle. But I support this at this point in time, since we do appear to have emissions, and since there is still drilling to come. Councilmember Anderson's point was very well made, that it would take a lot of time to spin this back up, and we won't necessarily have that time. I guess what I don't understand, or what I have not heard discussed, is how far into the future, after drilling and after completion of all the wells that are permitted, do we want to continue this? Because the Mr. Bickle's comment about, well, the implied comment that how far are we going to pursue this forward in time, that's a reasonable question to ask. If we're going to spend $1 million a year forever on this, I think we need to ponder that. I'm not saying don't do it this year. I'm not saying don't do it when it's needed. I'm just saying, what's the ultimate end goal at this point? And I don't know that anyone has an answer for me, but maybe we can just all collectively start thinking about that. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Councilmember Groom.
Yeah, I do think I was hopeful that our air quality monitoring program would be substantially reduced in this time frame. I do understand the start and stop of air quality monitoring for this area, but I did have a question for Ms. Yellico in regards to is there any dual purposes that what we're capturing, could that also work and support our sustainability and greenhouse gas tracking throughout Broomfield? Because I know we have a station down at the Commons. Is there a dual purpose that we could use during this time?
So probably not during 2021 currently, because we have 15 stations that 14 stations that we contracted for in 2020. We have 4 sensor systems with canisters at locations farther south in Broomfield. And the purpose are to provide data to ACES, our Environmental Sustainability Committee, on emissions in those areas. So those have been up there for about 45 days, I'd say. So they will have data from the last quarter of 2020 to assess what kind of emissions we're seeing through kind of the middle of Broomfield, farther south where we have the most traffic, and in a variety of different neighborhoods. So we are doing that now for ACES, with only 6 sensor systems available for 2021 under this proposed contract. Without adding systems at additional cost, you would only have the coverage of the Livingston pad and the interchange pad.
Thank you. And then another follow-up question. The one thing I really appreciate from our air quality monitoring program is the continuity that we have on a regional basis. Our air quality doesn't start and stop at our boundaries, and it is a contribution as a regional wide air quality monitoring as well as greenhouse monitoring. Can you just talk to the public a little bit about our regional play in this air quality monitoring?
So Dr. Helmig's Boulder Air does have ozone monitoring equipment at our Soaring Eagle site. He also monitors at 4 other locations, including Boulder and I believe also in Longmont. So he is measuring ozone in this North Metro region that Broomfield is a part of. And all of our data, even from our sensor systems around the oil and gas pads, are also recorded, and we share that information with the Colorado Department of Health and Environment. And their air quality monitoring has also been done at all stages of operations at the Livingston pad, and they post that information on the CDPHE website as well. So we are part, I think we're contributing data on both ozone issues and oil and gas issues at the state level with this program.
Thank you. I appreciate that feedback.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Schaaf.
Thank you, Mayor. So, I do appreciate staff's work on this to make this program a little bit more flexible. I think that right now, in a way, the ship has sailed, on this program. I think that, we had the opportunity to tweak it, a year ago and really make it a program. But at this point, things have changed so much over the last year in terms of extraction, stopping their drilling on some pads, as well as the situation changing with the Livingston pad. So I think at this point, the solution that staff has come up with is a good solution for now. And I guess this provides us the most flexibility that we have moving forward with both Ajax as well as Boulder Air. Boulder Air continues to give us that constant, whereas Ajax will continue to give us that flexibility as extraction comes back and resumes or doesn't resume or changes their program, or whoever comes back, whether it's extraction or someone else. So it gives us flexibility moving forward, and I appreciate that. So staff, thank you for your work on this.
Yeah, Tammy, I don't know if you still have a comment. I did want to make one comment that, and it's really off of Councilmember Anderson's comment that as it stands right now, that they can bring a rig in with 30 days notice between now and December 31st, 2022. And I've said on the committee meetings that I've talked about it, and I just think that if we're responsible, as city council, we need to anticipate that rig will come in until we know something different. And I don't think we're going to know something different probably till December 31st, 2022. And I think we need to prepare for that. And then based on, I think Councilmember Evans had a good point about what happens when the drilling's done. I don't think there's been extensive conversations about that. But it's just premature to do that until the drilling window's closed. And we have had an operator that goes, that'll cut it right to that 30 days, and we have to need to respond. So, Tammy, did you want to make an additional comment, or did you make it?
No, I do, Mayor. If you're approving the Fourth Amendment to the Ajax agreement, we would want that to be with one condition. There's a discrepancy between the original scope of work and our brand new scope of work. And so it would be with the condition of changing page 4 of the agreement, which is Exhibit A, item number 1, changing 3 days to 48 hours. And that is on the replacement of the trigger canisters. Part of the negotiations were to change that to just 48 hours for the replacement of the trigger canisters. And so we need to change that 3 days in the scope of services on page 4 to 48 hours. That change, that's how we would approve the contract.
And that's 2020-267?
Yes.
Okay. And then I'll ask, I'm tempted, Councilmember Lim, to ask you to make the motion if you want to, because we're now at that point on 2020-267. Do you want to make that motion with that condition?
Sure. Mm-hmm. Do you want me to do that? I move that resolution number 2020.
Stop for a second.
What now?
Yeah, give me 1 second. So I need the clerk to read proposed resolution number 2020-267 by title. I get ahead of my. I'll call on you in just 2 seconds.
Excuse me. Oh, sorry, I had a frog in my throat. Okay, so resolution 2020-267, authorizing and approving a Fourth Amendment to the agreement by and between the City and County of Broomfield and Ajax Analytics, Inc. for air quality monitoring associated with oil and gas operations.
Okay, Councilmember Lim, do you want to?
Yes. I move that resolution number 2020-267 be adopted with revision to Exhibit A, page 9, to say that the consultant will replace any triggered air canisters within 48 hours.
I think that's why you did the motion. Councilmember Anderson.
Second.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Jaworski,
Yes.
Law Evans,
Yes.
Lim,
Yes.
Lindstedt,
Yes.
Shaft,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Castriota,
Yes.
Groom,
Yes.
Hinkle.
Yes.
It passes unanimously. Let's move to proposed resolution number 2020-268. Will the clerk please read proposed resolution number 2020-268 by title?
Resolution 2020-268, authorizing and approving a First Amendment to the agreement by and between the City and County of Broomfield and Boulder AIR for air quality monitoring associated with oil and gas operations.
Is there a motion? Councilmember Anderson?
Yes, that move that resolution number 2020-268 authorizing, oh, sorry, am I supposed to read the amendment to the agreement with Boulder Air? Wait, I am in the wrong place here.
Just go ahead, then resolution 2020-268 be adopted.
Adopted. Thanks.
Okay, there you go. Councilmember Shaft?
Second.
Okay, is there any additional discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Law Evans,
Yes.
Lim,
Yes.
Lindstedt,
Yes.
Shaft,
Yes.
Anderson,
Oops. Yes.
Castriota,
Yes.
Groom,
Yes.
Hinkle,
Yes.
Jaworski.
Yes.
Passes unanimously, and so we'll move on to the city and county attorney's report is next. Ms. Gilbert, do you have a report?
Mayor, I wanted to just interrupt for a second and call the meeting to order. I've heard from 2 residents that they attempted to call in regards to the marijuana issue and was not, you didn't see them. So I don't know what happened. I just want to make sure that we know that technically we might need to beef that up.
We can check.
Because they said they were in the queue and waiting.
Was one Jan?
Yes.
She came in after the vote had occurred. Once again, I offer a lot of license for people that if council's still discussing it, but once they start voting, she came in late. So
yeah, and I know, I just wanted to bring it up because the other person that contacted me said that they were calling in prior to the agenda items starting. So I know you give a lot of leeway. I'm just bringing it up that there was a little loophole. They know it was first reading and they can submit comments in some of our study sessions and so on. But I just wanted to bring it up. Thank you.
No, I appreciate your comment. Thank you, Councilmember Groom. We'll keep an eye on it. And so we'll move on to the attorney's report. Pat?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have a report this evening.
The city and county manager's report is next. Ms. Hoffman, do you have a report?
I do not.
Okay, so we will move on to that there aren't any items for council consideration this evening under the legislative update, the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority, or the Arista Local Improvement District. Additionally, there are no special reports or requests for future action on the agenda, concluding the items this evening. Is there any other business come before the council? Councilmember Groom, did you want to make another comment?
Yeah, I was gonna ask City Manager Hoffman if she was able to get the dates and able to report out.
I just received a note back from Jeff Romine, and so again, it's a Broomfield Chamber offering, and it's tomorrow. They have 50 participants. I will send council the list. I'm sorry.
That's the one I mentioned earlier, correct?
It is. But Councilmember Groom will send an email out from the outreach and engagement that was done by the chamber that then we forwarded onto our list, but I'll also provide a list of the participants. It looks like there's 50 that will be on, but 30 that will actually be participating.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that
You bet.
announcement.
And, you know, I'm about to adjourn the meeting. I'll make a comment that, you know, I mean, we're not used to, you know, being done at 8 o'clock. We do have a meeting on Thursday. And as we like to say, it's a trifecta. We're going to have a study session, we're going to have a special session, and we're going to have an executive session. And so, so we will meet on Thursday, starting at 6 o'clock. Is that correct? Yeah. So anyway, thank you, council. Good meeting. I appreciate it. There being no further business, the council meeting is adjourned.
Good night, everyone.